So it looks like the tree has almost eaten the whole no contact hazardous substances sign that's been here since before we were able to get any kind of attention on cleaning up Redmond Creek. You know, now we can't get it out of the tree.
If you look at areas of concern, these were big industrial towns in the early 1900s before there was an environmental protection agency regulating the discharge of the byproducts of the industrial processes.
Obviously, there are a lot of environmental issues in these locations that are built up over decades of time, and a combination of neglect, poor regulations, and standards sort of all contribute to that. And I thought the piece was good at sort of highlighting those dynamics and also highlighting the people that are actually on the ground working and what it took for them to pass legislation and get money involved to make this a realistic endeavor over the next few decades, or I think that maybe the next decade. I believe it's up to 2030 on that particular bill, but I thought that the piece had a really great way of sort of showcasing those areas in terms of making them look quite beautiful, worthy of being saved, obviously, but also sort of using the backdrop as an educational primer in terms of what's going on, not just in these places, but in general with humans' interaction with nature and sort of what it looks like to sort of make a proactive decision in trying to change that and trying to make adjustments as opposed to sort of wallowing in apocalyptic rhetoric. So I thought that the piece was really great in that sense and had a great sort of inspirational tone that I thought was matched by people that were trying to get to work and get things done. So I ended up thinking it was powerful and persuasive for those reasons.
I was fascinated by the discussion of how the Great Lakes area was a hub of industrial activity in the 1900s with black and white pictures. However, this industry obviously took its toll on the environment with so many resulting pollutants in the area. I'm so happy to hear that due to community groups and government assistance, it is now much cleaner. I enjoyed the footage of people having fun in the waterways and hearing about the increase in tourism as it's much cleaner now. Love the chill soundtrack under the interesting interviews of both volunteers and professionals who care about the area.
Definitely one of the more uplifting climate change environmental films. A lot of the times these documentaries are very depressing to see how little of an impact we've been able to accomplish and how our environment is being failed by us. But this film was the complete opposite, sort of seeing how big of an impact we can have on our environment when we put all of our resources and energy into it. So it was really cool to see how everyone came together to restore these areas of concern back to what they're supposed to be, what they're naturally supposed to be. And also, the main point of this documentary being when you bring back these areas of concern and these natural resources, when you bring those back to what they're supposed to be, it also revitalizes the community around it. It creates jobs. It creates, recreation, developments. It just has an impact on so much more than we realize, which I thought was really great to bring awareness to, because I don't think a lot of people think about that when they think about reversing pollution and all of that, and how much of an impact it can actually have on the community as well as the wildlife. So just seeing all this from the documentary, how there were so many people returning to the waters, canoeing, kayaking, rafting, just swimming, and how they're talking about all the new houses and all the new hotels and businesses that were thriving because the water and the lakes and the rivers were I guess in this case it was a river, was thriving. It showed, did a great job of showing the befores and afters of these areas of concern, how drastic a change they were able to make. So yeah, it's just taking these opportunities to revitalize the communities by revitalizing the areas of concern and these natural water resources.
It deals with the two factors, or what I like to feel are the two E's when it comes to this issue. The issue of environmental versus economic. That's all to say that there's always a tug of war between what's going to help the economy versus what's going to help the environment. It's one of the reasons why we've seen pollution get as bad as it has now, because it's much more profitable to harmed the environment, because taking these shortcuts in causing pollution will lead to more economic upturn. What I like about this documentary, or this promotion, is that it turns it on its head. It gives you the argument of it would actually be more economically beneficial to protect the environment. If you have an environmentally prosperous location, you start seeing a rise in tourism. You see a rise in activities that are happening outdoors. Uh, that will cause a profit when it comes to people coming to see your land, especially in this example, the Great Lakes. Uh, Whereas if you leave it a environmental waste dump, people are going to steer clear because the place is putrid. It's unsafe. It smells. It's all these different factors that, while short term you're going to make money, in the long term you've essentially shot yourself in the leg.
They first show us this very sad footage of how industrialization has disrupted some ecosystems, making them very toxic for any human interaction. But then we get very hopeful because they show the work of activists working together to get the government's attention and remind the government that their job is to protect humans and also the environment. So I love to see how this cleanup work has attracted new visitors and industries that create and revitalize communities. And this is just an amazing example of how the communities can gather around and do things positive for them. And it is positive in general for the whole region and the whole government and the tourism industry and everything attached to the retailers and restaurants. It's a very great example. I'm so happy I watched this. Quite an interesting example.
I loved how the filmmakers kind of dropped you right in on the action, and that grabbed your attention and it kept it throughout the remainder of the film, which I thought was very cool. I loved what they did with this and how they put it together. They really conveyed how important it was to keep these rivers clean from pollution and from chemicals. And it definitely was impactful. I learned a lot watching it, and I liked what they did with their old footage, how they added that into it, and what they did with their cinematography too.
Really makes you understand the sheer enormity and horror of pollution and contamination. The idea that the water is so contaminated, like it's toxic to swim in, that's terrifying, that's horrifying. But once obviously it's established that push a sense of horror, it then brings in this kind of strong note of hope, by showing how these contaminated areas can be actually restored. If it's possible here, then maybe it's possible everywhere. Seeing how these acts of restoration have brought these communities back to life as well is really interesting. It's quite fascinating to see how these natural areas are active as and have contact again as social hubs. When they were toxic and they were polluted, and the community itself suffered too. So it kind of just goes to show how important nature and restoration initiatives are. There's a massive kind of feedback loop between our world